Take back your soul. This is another transmission from Mahadeva here at ThunderWizard.com headquarters, where you find the world's only unified spiritual energy system at ThunderWizard.com. Get ready, because here I come. Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard, and yes, that's right, I have completely gone over to the fringe side. I want to discuss the possibility of, does the Hopi prophecy predict an alien invasion? Hello, welcome. All right, so if you have been following my channel for a while, then especially if you've read my books, you have heard me talk about and write about the Hopi prophecy. Now, I have only focused on the part of the Hopi prophecy that had to do with the human migration around the globe. And I did that because I found it to be the best way to explain my experience. So without getting into too much detail, I have trained in multiple shamanic traditions from unbroken lineages in various cultures from different parts of the world, including Africa, of course, East India, and China, and my own research into my own ethnic background in the indigenous Northwestern European understanding. And so the Hopi prophecy was very, surprisingly, I thought, very accurate about all of that. And specifically, what each spiritual practice teaches. So if you look over here on the left, this is an archaeological artifact that actually is still around, and it is on Hopi land in the southwestern United States. But there's some really amazing things about the Hopi. It's not. As you know, I don't talk about other Native American stuff because I haven't been trained in it. Number one, and the other one is that this prophecy has been made public and has been talked about. And again, I find it to be very accurate. But the one thing that's really interesting about the Hopi is that they are considered by other tribes to be the elders. And they, I believe, if they're not the only tribe, they are one of the only tribes in the continental United States that has their original land that they lived on. So they didn't get moved off of their land. They weren't put on a reservation. And they have not signed any treaty with the United States. So they're still technically the only independent native tribe on the continental United States. And that's pretty amazing, seeing as that, they believe themselves to be the wisdom keepers of earth knowledge. And it has been, if you ask them, they will say it's because we have held on to this knowledge for so long that we have been protected and we're still exactly where we were. We didn't have to change our life. So that, it is in the middle of nowhere. That's true. It's in the middle of the desert, so that's true. But nevertheless, that's still pretty impressive. So the part of the myth that I have talked about, which I liked, which is the origin of the four races of human beings and where they went to, and very quickly, what it says is that way back when the Great Spirit brought together the 4 clans. So there were 4 clans. There was just human beings, and there were 4 clans of human beings, and those 4 clans were the 4 elements. It was air, water, fire, and earth. And each one of the clans was then sent off into different directions to master their element. And then the idea was at the appointed time, the Great Spirit would bring all of the clans back together. They would share their knowledge, and the result of that sharing of knowledge would create the next world. So if I know it's hard to see here, but if you look in the bottom left corner, if I'm reading this right, if I heard this right, you see those 3 lines. Those 3 lines are 3 previous worlds. We are now in the 4th world, and we're talking about, this is the Hopi understanding, if I'm understanding it right. And then we're about to move into what they call the 5th world. But the question is whether, how we do that. Are we going to do that peacefully and naturally, or is there going to have to be some kind of cosmic intervention that will purify the negativity and allow us to move into the next world? So I was only focusing on the first part, which is that the 4 tribes got together and they decided to go off into different directions, and each clan went into a different direction to master their element. You have one clan, which is the Water Clan, and the Water Clan went west. You have the Earth Clan, which went south. You have the Fire Clan, which went north, and you have the Air Clan, which went east. Now, the Hopis don't say this, to my knowledge, but being a Westerner, college-educated Westerner, I say, well, so the first human beings arose in Southeast Africa. So and I further have another idea which I've imposed on it. It works for me, and if it works, don't fix it, but you're free to believe it or not believe it. But the other thing I've imposed on it is I've come to the conclusion that the place where the 4 clans were brought together and then given their assignments was in Egypt, where the Pyramid of Giza is. I believe that the Pyramid of Giza is much older than what academics want us to believe. I believe it's probably 25, 35,000 years old. And I'm still not done doing my research on that and giving my opinions on that. But that's where I think this meeting took place. The Great Spirit brought all of the clans together. They happened to be human beings, modern human beings, and they were still in Africa. And they were told, okay, so now you guys got to go off in different directions and master the 4 elements, and then come back together, share your knowledge, and then we'll move up to the next level. And so the Africans are water. And as it turns out, if they were coming up from Southeast Africa into Egypt, there was only one place for them to go to stay on the continent, and that would be west. And it turns out that my Yoruba teachers, the people that taught me the sacred shamanic drumming of the Yoruba people, which is the largest West African, or African, I think it's the largest African ethnic population in Africa, is the Yoruba people. And the vast majority of New World Africans are of Yoruba descent. So the Yoruba, their history, according to my teacher Baba Ayo, is that they came from Egypt a long time ago, and they migrated west to where they are now, which is, the western part of equatorial part of Africa. So that would follow with the Hopi myth that says that the Africans went west, and they're the water people. The fire people went north, and they went to master fire, and that would be people like me, white people. And so they went north to master fire. And again, if you want to put yourself in a position where you've got to master fire pretty quick, going up north during an ice age is a pretty good way to do it. Because if you don't figure out how to master fire pretty quick, you're going to freeze to death. So that's where eventually the white people who became white, that's where they went. And then the people who went south, those are supposed to be Native Americans. Now that's an interesting one because based on the DNA, Native Americans came up same place that the eventual white people came, and then they split off, and then they traveled east through Siberia, and then went over the land bridge into Alaska, and then the only place to go from there is south. So that would explain why the Native American, the Earth Clan, went south, because when they got to their new continent, that's the only way they could go. And then the other tribe, the other clan left would be the Air Clan, and that is the yellow people, according to them. And of course, that would be the East Asians, and of course, that's east. So if you're in Egypt, you go up and then hang a right and go east. Boom, that's where you're going to end up. So to me, that made sense. I mean, that followed a logical conclusion, and I really liked that. And I really liked the idea of each clan having to master an element. And so having trained in Yoruba music, what I can tell you is that when you turn on your radio, I would say, unless you're listening to hardcore country music, everything you listen to is African. Everything. The beats that are used, the melodies that are used, they're almost entirely African, even though, neo-Nazi punk rockers, they're still playing Yoruba music, whether they realize it or not. Again, unless you're listening to classical music or country music, it's Yoruba African music. And so that's water. Water gets into everything. And the one thing that segregation was not able to do was to take African music out of the mainstream. I mean, it just, like water, went everywhere. And now it's just, every time you turn on your radio, you're listening to African music, whether you realize it or not. So that's the water element, and they've mastered that. And they did that through drumming. And then of course, the Europeans mastered fire. Every technological advancement we have has some kind of fire or fire-like scenario going along with it. If it's your light bulb, even though technically electricity isn't fire, it can start fires. It's still that hot, fiery thing. Your spark plug, there's a spark that happens to get your car moving. Bombs, airplanes, burning of gasoline, engines, guns, cannons. All of this is the mastery of fire, and this is technology. What we look at, technology comes from that. And then the people from the east, the air people, what they have done, which is unique to them, which is qigong. Which is the mastery of the ether element, could also be the air element, because one of the things you do is when you breathe, you're breathing in energy. So your qi, you can do qigong just by breathing. So they've mastered that. And then the Native Americans mastered earth wisdom. That's the Hopi myth that I've come to love and adore, and I've written about it over and over again. But I haven't really spent a lot of time with this until recently, and that's because it wasn't until September of 2021 that I had my final awakening of what the hell is really going on in this world. And we really do have a small cabal of extremely wealthy, extremely powerful people who have access to literally all of the money in the world. and technologies we can't even begin to understand, which they leak out whenever they want to do something. And the latest has come out in the last couple of years during the thing that I'm not allowed to talk about on YouTube, and all of the technological advancements and the medical advancements that they are wanting us to participate in. The level of technological advancement is beyond anything I could have even begun to comprehend. And I've come to believe that the deep state, which is a worldwide phenomenon, it's not in one country, but it's a worldwide web of corporatocracy and covert control over everything, that they have technologies that are far beyond what we can even begin to imagine. And so this has come to my attention. That has completely flipped me out, and I've been thinking, okay, I'm now ready to believe anything. And as you know, I'm not going to believe anything. I don't look to believe anything, but I'm open to believing anything at this point. Let me put it this way. I'm not going to disbelieve anything right off the bat. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to know ridiculous nonsense when I hear it, because I still am able to do that. But I'm willing to put my critical thinking to the test when it comes to just about anything. And based on what I've seen, which I can't talk about on this channel, the technological advancements, which are absolutely, completely unbelievable, would have been, that I wouldn't have even begun to believe. And the reach of the corporatocracy that's ruling the planet, the depth and the reach that they have, that has just opened me up to, okay, let's, what is really going on in this world? And so one of them has to do with UFOs. I've been an interested observer of the phenomenon. I myself, to the best of my knowledge, have not had any personal experiences with aliens or UFOs. So because of that, I've always taken every UFO thing with a grain of salt. If it weren't for the fact that I had a Bigfoot encounter, I would have the same view about Bigfoot. Hey, it sounds plausible to me. It's a really cool idea, but until I see one and somebody has a dead body, I'm not going to believe it. Until I had my own experience, and now I know, not only do they exist, they are not from our dimension. And so when now, after this awakening, I've been seeing on mainstream media, mainstream news organizations have been showing not just leaked video, it's video that the Pentagon has been handing out to the news stations to play. Because bear in mind, nothing gets played on mainstream media if it doesn't have approval from the highest sources. Let's be clear about that. There is absolutely nothing that CNN, NBC, even Fox News, there's nothing that they give out to the public unless it has the rubber stamp of the highest level of the corporatocracy, one world government. And so when you see multiple reports on mainstream media talking about the Pentagon confirming that these videos, and in some of them you have these giant pyramids that are the size of football fields just twirling around in the sky, and following military aircraft and following naval ships and things like that, and these videos that are being presented by the government. This stuff is real and it's not from Earth. That's got me thinking, okay, this has to mean something. I personally, like perhaps many of you, have been really kind of frustrated as, okay, something's got to change. How are we going to get rid of these people? And even though, as you guys know, I follow my own belief, which we're going to talk about, which is if you're true to your soul, you have nothing to worry about. Everything will always work out and you will be safe no matter what is going on. And I still believe that. So it's not coming from fear. But when I realize the power and the reach that they have, and more importantly, their absolute total commitment, they meaning the corporatocracy, their absolute total commitment to do whatever is possible to destroy human freedom and to take complete control over everything. You know, they're willing to sacrifice millions of lives without blinking, and they're relentless. They will not stop. When I see that, I start thinking, what are we going to do to stop them? That if the planet is going to survive, I think this is self-evident. If the planet is going to survive, we must get rid of them. Their power must be taken from them. The problem is that they have unbelievable power. I mean, they have an absolute vice grip lock on everything. And, we do not live in a world that is run by elections and politics. There's no such thing as democracy or communism, or these things don't exist. It doesn't matter what country we're talking about. There's a power beneath that government that is running things. Any wars that have happened have always been manipulated, and they're all about, every single war that we've had has been a way for the elites to gain more and more global power. It's always been that way, at least in modern times. And the destruction of the planet is inevitable if they continue in power. That is also a given. I'm not going to get into that. I've talked about that. Everybody, those people who believe what I'm saying and yet somehow think that global warming is a hoax, you guys need to wake the fuck up. Because the most powerful arm, militarily, monetarily, and the most powerful control over society is the oil and gas industry. We could talk about big tech, we could talk about big media, we could talk about big government, but the people who have the most power are the oil and gas. So that is a psyop. Those of you who think that that it's a hoax, it's not a hoax. Because you always have to follow the money. And there's no money in hoaxing global warming, but there's plenty of money in psyoping it. There's plenty of money in denying global warming, because if you believed that every time you got in your car and drove it that you were destroying your kids' world, you would stop doing it. And so people don't want to believe that, and so they're happy to buy into the nonsense when you hear from people saying there's no such thing as global warming, that's a hoax. And yet you have no problem believing the truth that we are that big media is controlling us, that big pharma is controlling us, that government, that shadow military is controlling us. And again, that's how they keep you in their grips. They're either gonna make you, they're going to push you until you respond one of two ways. You're either going to become a liberal or you're going to become a conservative. And if you're a conservative, the way they keep you under their grip is by fueling your understandable distrust by saying global warming, oh, that's a deep state hoax. That's a psyop. That's a false flag operation in your mind. And if you happen to be like me, I leaned more toward the progressive side because I tend to be somebody, equal rights and blah blah blah. I'm artistic. I'm right-brained. Blah blah blah. So they can manipulate me in the other direction. But they're both manipulations, and the truth is in the middle. It's not even in the middle. It's not even. It's just not. It just throw that whole dualistic understanding. Just throw it all away. So getting back to here, so I want to share some really interesting things. I'm going to get to the question of, is the final purification going to be an alien invasion? And I got to tell you that I'm thinking along these lines, and I can't imagine what else would do it, and I don't like that idea. So this isn't something that I like. Let me be clear. I don't like that. I personally don't like that idea. But that seems to be the most logical, likely outcome now that I've come to accept that there are extraterrestrial civilizations that are millions, if not billions of years ahead of us in terms of their evolution, not to mention their mastery of technology. They are civilizations that have merged, and in fact, probably, I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming they never had a split between spiritual and material. That for them, the spiritual and the material have been the same, which means they run their technology with their psychic intention. Whereas we humans, we have this ability. You can be in the room with somebody, or you can be in a very emotionally intense state, like making love to your partner or having an argument, and you'll feel the emotional psychic connection, but it doesn't really go beyond that. And even though you can tell where somebody's come, we have to use words. We have to use words in order to communicate. We have to physically touch things to make them move around. And that's because we have a schism in our mind between physical and spiritual. And if you imagine what I believe is the case with Bigfoot, if you imagine that you've got beings on another planet, and they evolve in a different way where spirituality, the non-physical, forget about spiritual, the non-physical and intention is merged with the physical, then the logical outcome is that their technology is going to be linked with their intentions. And to them, that's not magic. That's just the way that's the way life works. And according to physics, we're just now in our science, we're just now coming to the realization that we live in a quantum field, that there's no such thing as time or space, that thought, which is awareness, is faster than anything and is non-local. It's everywhere. So your thoughts can travel to the farthest reaches of the universe instantly. And what we do here on our planet has repercussions everywhere else in the universe, which is why right after World War II, all of a sudden aliens show up in our culture. Flying saucers show up in our culture because we dropped atom bombs. And apparently those explosions, those nuclear explosions, by the way, it drives me crazy. People pronounce it nuclear. It drives me crazy. Nuclear explosions actually are tearing open the fabric of space-time. So it got the attention of every other developed civilization in the universe, and they're all now focusing here on us because we're doing all kinds of crazy things. We're toddlers with machine guns. We don't know what the hell we're doing. And the people who have access to all of this, our most advanced technology, are psychopathic corporatocracy, world rulers bent on complete, total world domination. So we have a very dangerous situation going on here. And so if I was a very advanced alien who's had this understanding that thought is instantaneous and I can be anywhere in the universe just by intending it, and there was this, there was a bunch of monkeys, because that's really all we are. Seriously, guys, our DNA is 1% different than chimpanzees. We're primates. All of our problems come from just being stupid monkeys. We're stupid monkeys with just the tiniest bit of self-awareness, and we've learned how to use our opposable thumbs in good ways. But we not only do we have the potential of destroying our own planet, we also have the potential of maybe destroying the universe by by stumbling onto nuclear weapons. And there has been documented reports in military installations all over the world, in all kinds of ways, but specifically nuclear missile silos have been targeted by extraterrestrials. Well, they've flown over, and in some cases they've turned the whole thing off, and the military there can't get it turned back on again, and then the aliens will turn it back on and give them control again. And the message is really clear: we can shut you down whenever we want. There have been other reported scenarios where there have been secret nuclear tests. One of them, as I understand it, was a nuclear test that was going to happen on the moon, and they were sending out a rocket to the moon with a nuke on it. And as soon as that was launched, a flying saucer was flying around it and shooting little lasers at it, and then destroyed it. And the message was really clear: no, you're not gonna do that. You're not going to use any more nukes. You're not going to use them on the moon. And I think that's the reason why we haven't used any since World War II. I think it's because our military knows that, or those that are in power know that those guys aren't going to let us do that. There's also another really interesting thing which has to do with the Maushan. Those of you, by the way, $750 off the Maushan practices if you go. I've taken out the personal Skype sessions, and so that reduces your price by $750. You can go there and check that out. But one of the things that the Maushan does, which is why I am still kind of the opinion that the Maushan might be an extraterrestrial spiritual technology that was given to humans. I haven't determined that for sure yet, but I'm suspecting that might be the case, because one of the things that you can do with this, and I know because I've experienced, is that when you're in that state of power and emptiness, when somebody comes at you, it ends up getting reflected back on them. So they'll come in for a strike and they'll end up, hurting themselves, and nothing will happen to you. And there's a lot of reports throughout military conflicts, the Korean War, I believe, and the Vietnam War, where, again, whenever we go to war, these UFOs show up. And so there were multiple occasions when humans would fire on them, and they'd end up getting fired back on, and then afterwards you'd find out that it was their own weapons used against them. So some guy's got a machine gun and he's pointing it up at the sky, and the next thing you know, he's riddled with machine gun bullets. Another one was that there was some naval ships that saw some UFOs, and they shot a missile at it. And then the missile ends up showing up the next day, striking another ship and blowing it up. And when they found out it was from, a missile from another ship, far away. So that is a Maushan thing, and that is something that that they do. And so that, that's when the aliens are like, we're not going to fight you, but your force is just going to get focused back on you. And so the military has stopped engaging, as I understand it. Whenever they see a UFO, they just don't engage. So I'm saying all this to give you my belief on why I think that's what the Hopis are talking about here. So if you look at this rock here, in the far left corner you see those 3 scratches. That means the previous 3 worlds. And apparently in one of those worlds, human beings got caught up in black magic and sorcery and caused all kinds of problems. So apparently they walked away from that. So we're now in the 4th world. And then you see a circle and a cross. If you look, let's see, maybe I should open this up. So you've got a circle and a cross. You see that? So, and I've told you this before, which I believe, which is they claim that they knew ahead of time that the white man was coming, and that if he showed up wearing a circle or some kind of a, like my North Sans, if they showed up with some kind of a circle, then that meant that they remembered who they were, and this would be a time of sharing of knowledge, and the human race would bump up to the next level and achieve enlightenment or whatever. But if they showed up with the cross without a circle, so that's why you see a circle there and then a cross above it, because those are the 2 possibilities. So if they show up with the cross without a circle, it means they've forgotten who they are, and you need to get the fuck away, because these guys are going to bring nothing but disease and disaster and all kinds of other things, which of course is what happened. And then you see up here, you see these. Okay, let me talk about something that I think is really important. So if you look up here on the top, the 3 guys, you see that 3 of those 4 guys, their bodies are made up of 2 lines, their torso. When you look at the 4th guy, it's only 1 line. So it's not just a stick figure. They weren't just being lazy. This is, there's an important interpretation there. And if you look at the guy on the bottom there, which is supposed to be the Great Spirit, it's just 1 line. So the people up here at the top represent various governments and various controlling, chiefs, people, whatever, that bring about destruction to the world. These are not good people. These are bad people. And you notice that their torso is made up of 2 lines instead of 1 stick figure line. And the way that was explained, which I thought was incredibly revelatory, was that the stick figure guys with 1 line, these are people that have 1 heart. The guys with 2 lines have 2 hearts. I want you to, now that sounds simple and you think, oh yeah, it's just some Native American guy. He doesn't speak English so well, so he's a blah, blah, blah. And what he really means to say is, white men speak with forked tongue. But that's not what it means. It's not just that they're deceptive. Okay, I'm craning my neck here. I don't want to do that anymore. It's not just that they're deceptive. It means that they are of 1 heart as opposed to having 2 hearts. So what is heart? A heart is your passion. And this has everything to do with what I teach you. And somebody asked me a question, and I found myself saying that there's no such thing as shadow self. There's no such thing as a good part of you and a bad part of you. It doesn't exist. That at your essence, you are love. Every single person, no matter how horrible and evil and destructive they are, if they follow all of their feelings and all of their impulses back to the source within themselves, they will find that it comes from the desire to love and be loved. Now, I've been teaching you that there's only 1 commandment. And the commandment is that you follow your soul desire. And when you are not following your soul desire, you are in conflict. You are in conflict between what your soul wants to do and what your selfish, materialistic, insecure human part of you wants to do, which is to be accepted by the crowd. And conflict is two things causing a division. These three people here aren't evil because they're liars. It's not that they're deceptive and they have two minds about something, or they have, speaking with forked tongue, as it were. It means that they are in conflict with their soul. That is how damaging and destructive that is. At the very least, if you are in conflict with your soul, you will bring misery to yourself. It's a sliding scale, of course. The misery could be very minor, like you might have some physical pain or maybe some arthritis or something like that, or you could be dying of cancer or some other life-threatening illness. Or you could be Amber Heard, and you could be suffering from a personality disorder and destroying people's lives, and you can't help yourself. These are all the same symptoms of the same issue, which is, if you follow your soul without fear and without doubt and without conflict, then you will be of one heart. That's what that means. So when we look at this and we see that there are these two lines, one on top of the other, the one on top with the figures on it, that is if the white man shows up and he shows up with a cross without a circle. It's going to create this age of technology that will be destructive to the earth, and it will be destructive to spirituality, and it will be a time of destruction. And it will be run by people who are of two hearts, meaning that they will be in conflict with themselves about following their soul or following their ego. However you want to look at that. Because it's all the same thing. Whether you are a codependent, somebody who's, let's say, married to an abusive alcoholic, you don't cause any problem to anybody else, you don't drop bombs on anybody, but you're married to an abusive person who takes your soul and chews it up and causes you damage, and you do that out of the need and the desperation to be a good person and be loved, you have two hearts. Your soul says, get the hell out of here, go be yourself, go live your true life, and be an artist and be a healer or whatever it is that you want to do. Stop trying to fix a damaged person, get the hell out of here. Or you want to be good, you want to look like a good person and a loving person, and you stay with an abusive person and you let them just mangle your soul up because the thought of not being there to fix a damaged person, you feel that you will be alone and unloved, and that's intolerable for you. You have two hearts. And while your life isn't the same as Hitler, the same internal dynamic is there. It's the same problem. And this is why our society for the past 2,000 years is filled with good-hearted people who have good intentions, who are destroying the planet. In fact, how many of you here who have not taken the reptilian anointing, how many of you here have family members and friends who have? And they've either done it because they're part of the narrative, or they've done it because they just want to belong, or they just want to keep their job. That's having two hearts. That when you have enough good-hearted people who are kind and they'll open the door for you and they'll lend you money, and it's not that they're evil people. It's just that they've given a piece of their soul away to the corporatocracy. They've given a piece of their soul away to the narrative so that they can be accepted and loved, and they do damage to themselves and to others. And when you have enough people, driving their oil-based gasoline cars, when you have enough people doing that, you pollute the whole atmosphere. You have one person doing it, but you have millions and millions of people every single day. At this point, billions of people every single day. You now have a really destructive, horrific scenario going on. So I thought that was really, when I heard that, I didn't pay attention to that, because a lot of times people, even the Hopi, will talk about those three stick figures, and they won't. And in some of them they've redrawn it, and they haven't showed that there's two-hearted people and people with one heart. And when I heard that, it really, I found that to be really, really powerful. So getting back to, are aliens going to come? If you look underneath that, you see two circles underneath the three people that are dual-hearted. There are two circles. And those two circles, we now retroactively look back on it and we say it as World War I and World War II. And this is if humanity went the way of the cross instead of the way of the circle, then eventually what would happen is that the Great Spirit would bring two earth-shaking events that would actually herald the coming of their version of the Messiah, which they call the Pahana, which is the elder white brother who's going to come and purify the world. And whatever the heck that means. I haven't figured that one out. But those two circles apparently are World War I and World War II. And then, it's hard to see it here, but there's a little circle. It's hard to see, but there's a little thing that happens right underneath the third dual-hearted guy, and then you see a fourth guy who's a single-hearted guy. And that little thing right there indicates the great purification that will come. Now, if you hear about the great purification, I've heard some things, but I was listening to one Hopi guy talk about it, and he started talking about, there are various possible purifications that could come. And in one of them, the sky is darkened, and the purifiers all, rain down from the sky, and they land. And they take over the earth. And when they take over the earth, they then will purify the world. They'll get rid of the people who are dual-hearted, and they will allow the single-hearted people to flourish and be part of the new world. And then they'll create this new world, and the earth will heal itself, and society will go on to this beautiful scenario of whatever the fifth world is supposed to be. And so the way he described it, he sounded like there were multiple options of, depending on what we do, how the purification is going to come. Now, I'm not trying to say I know for a fact what the prophecy is. I'm just trying to remember what I heard this guy saying. He also said that if that doesn't work, there's going to be people who come from the east, and they're going to bring knowledge and purification, and that will be it will be a purification, but it will be more of a mild, friendly purification. And if that doesn't work, then there's going to be people coming from the West in the United States who will be like ants, and they will just crawl into the United States from the West, like army ants just coming in, and they'll take over. And it won't be, and if that happens, then it's not going to be pleasant. They're going to take out all of the dual-hearted people in a really horrible way. And the main thing was that if you want to be protected, the protection is in your heart. Again, like I've been saying, you follow your true path, you're going to be protected. The universe will take care of you. So if you're listening to this and you're getting scared, you don't need to be scared. But my question is, based on that we have, I mean, the Pentagon, not the government. We're talking about the Pentagon, which means that this was approved by the deepest, most powerful elements within the deep state. Has rubber stamped, not only rubber stamped, but has decided to give this information to the public that yes, there are aliens and they are penetrating our airspace and they have, flying saucers and big giant pyramids and all kinds of other things, and this is a real thing. And that they have the ability to shut down any of our technology. They have the ability to shut down all of our nuclear weapons facilities. They have the ability to ground all of our aircraft. They have the ability to jam and stop any of our technology because it's based on, electricity. Electricity or, whatever. So they have this power to just turn everything off. And that apparently this guy was saying that if it's the people that come down, that rain down, and then take over the world, they will they're going to stop everything. All electrical, our houses are filled with electricity. Those are going to be shut off. Internet, cell phone, everything associated with our technology will be turned off. Now, before you start thinking that that's impossible, that's very possible. And one thing that could easily do that would be a sun flare. And we've had these kinds of flares in the past, but they occurred before we had electricity and phone and all that other stuff that we have now. And all it would take would be one good, normal, not even out of the ordinary. It's going to happen again. We don't know when, but we're ripe for another solar flare. But when a solar flare with enough power hits our atmosphere, it's going to knock out everything. Electricity, internet, cell phone, planes will fall out of the sky. So this is a very real possibility. So another thought is, would this be timed? Would the aliens time it so that they invade during a solar flare? I don't know. But I'm about ready to open it up for questions if you have any, of course. I may not have any answers to any of this, but I'm on the fence about how I feel about it. And let me share with you one last thing that's got me really thinking about, the universe is now become a very different place for me. And if you want to, you can look this up. You can go online and look for the UFO experience in Zimbabwe in '94. So if you haven't heard about this, Zimbabwe is a British colony, or at least it was a British colony. So it's a multiracial country, but people speak English, and they very British in their thinking. And so there was a middle school out in the middle of the country, and one day the children were all outside playing recess, and they see this UFO. They see this flying saucer land just on the other side of the fence of their school. And so all of these kids, these middle school kids, go running to go see what the heck it is. And when they get there, they find a flying saucer with two of the grays standing, one standing on top of the saucer, another one standing in the bottom somewhere. And there's an interaction. And the interaction is 100% psychic. There's no verbal communication. And so whatever happens traumatizes and frightens these children tremendously, and they come screaming. One woman said it was like, it was like a snake of children coming up. They're running back to the school screaming because they're so traumatized by it. And a few of them had an interaction with the beings where the Greys locked eyes with them. And they said that when the Greys locked eyes with them, they couldn't move. These are little kids. These are like 5 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old. They're little kids. And these little kids, they say that, when the Greys looked at them, their eyes would lock them in, and they would be frozen. And then there would be this download of emotions and feelings and pictures. And they didn't really know what to make of it, but it was of a traumatic nature, of the message that when afterwards some of the kids were able to verbalize it, they would say that they were telling us that technology is going to destroy the world. And they had mixed feelings about them. On the one hand, they felt like these beings were evil because they had these, they'd never seen anything like it, and their ability to, lock eyes with you and then, give you all this psychic information. That feels evil to humans. We're not used to that. Especially when somebody has the power to keep you in place because they're sending thoughts to you and you can't move. That's a frightening experience for humans. And but they had these mixed feelings about them, that on the one hand, they felt that they had good intentions, that they wanted to help us, and they were desperately trying to get the message across to humans that technology is going to destroy the planet. And so they walked away with that feeling that technology was going to destroy the planet. And they even use those words. These are little kids. And they're using the words that technology is going to ruin the planet and kill all the life on the planet. So being an adult and being a critical thinker, I start trying to get in the mind of these beings. First and foremost, the thing that strikes me is how awkward and difficult it is for them to communicate. Because what I want to do, if I'm going to believe in them, I want to look at them like they're ascended masters. And so I see ascended masters as benevolent and being able to communicate with us and being able to work in spiritual ways to create all kinds of coincidences and things like that where everything flows together. That's how I want to view them. But that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is that they are beings like us, that are limited created beings. Created is the wrong word, but you know what I mean by that. They're these limited beings that have abilities far beyond ours in a lot of ways, but they don't know how to talk. So my conclusion is that wherever they're from, they don't need to speak. So they haven't created any vocal cords. And so the only way, because the obvious thing to do would be to learn the English language. And if you're going to talk to a little kid, talk to them in words so that the kids will be able to repeat what you've said. The last thing you want to do is try and communicate deep, intricate subjects to 10-year-old kids that can't even figure out what the hell's happening here. More or less, take these things and put them into words and, try and repeat it to somebody else. So this tells me that they're desperate to get this message across, and that they're trying however that they can. And if that means we have to go to a middle school in the middle of Africa to tell the kids because nobody else is listening, and we don't know how to speak their language, so we're just going to shove a bunch of emotions and pictures at these little kids, that's going to traumatize them. And we know that, but what are we going to do? Nobody's listening. Because we don't want to destroy the planet. We don't want to invade. But you guys got to get that technology shit in order, or you're going to destroy the planet, and you're going to poke holes in space-time, and we can't let you guys do that. We live here. So it would be like the next door neighbor that's, playing music really loud and, setting off fireworks and, leaving, garbage in their front yard. At some point, you got to, call the cops on them. So we're the bad neighbors. We're the neighbor. We're the destructive neighbor that the other neighbors like. What do we do with those guys? What do we do with the rednecks over there? They're destroying the neighborhood. So that's got me a little worried, because if you put some being like that in that position, then the last ditch effort is they're going to have to invade. They're going to have to come down and they're going to have to take control, because if they don't, we're going to blow ourselves up or destroy space-time with our technology machine guns, and we're little 4-year-olds shooting up the place. And that's got me a little worried. Now, I'm not worried because I am endeavoring to be a one-hearted person. So I know as long as I do that, I'm going to be fine. And according to the prophecy, if you're a one-hearted person, you're gold. You got nothing to worry about. But that's my question. So that leaves a couple of questions. The first one is, what can we do? So we live in a quantum universe. We live in a quantum universe that operates from intention and from energy, from life force energy and intention. And we have the ability to affect this quantum universe that we live in. Instantaneously, we can affect and communicate with beings on the other side of the world, on the other side of the universe. Now, what I didn't talk about is the Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5, the Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind protocol. And so apparently these people have been having success making contact with various alien races and communicating with them. And I don't really know. I haven't decided to try that out yet, because I'm not going to do anything until I know what I'm doing. But apparently that is going on. So maybe I'm worried about something that doesn't need to be worried about. But according to him, the reason why you can invite aliens to come talk to you is that if you meditate and you draw a map to where you are, they'll show up. That's the phone that works. The SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial in Life or whatever, I find ridiculous, because it operates from the assumption that if there are intelligent aliens out there, they're going to be using radio waves. I mean, just the fact that we use radio waves, then that means every single other potential life form out there has to use radio waves. And so they're trying to, it's just ridiculous. No, they're going to have their own technology, things that we haven't even thought of. That's just the odds. Forget about them being more advanced. The odds are they're going to find ways of using and communicating and functioning that doesn't even matter to us, because we're a different evolutionary, path in life, in the universe. So what do you guys think? Should we start using our meditative powers to talk to our neighbors and say, hey guys, that's true, we got some people in our house that are destructive, and they're running the show, and we don't know what to do. Can you guys come and help us? Should we take this Maushan practice that I've been sharing with you, which I suspect might be of extraterrestrial origin? I don't know that for a fact, but operates on a lot of the same principles. Feels like it. It's so powerful. It feels like it's changing you so rapidly that it's almost too much for some people. Should we take that power and use that in our meditations to change or try and affect a change in the consciousness of our leaders? Should we use it in a way where we go to spiritual war and try and get rid of these people so that we don't force aliens to invade and knock down all of our technology? These are things I'm thinking of. And while I'm working all that out, I'm going deeper into this practice, and I invite you to do the same. All right, so I'm happy to take any questions. This is a question and answer. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps and then write your question. If you're just going to dump your opinion, more than likely I will bypass you. I might even delete it because it's just noise to me. All right, let's see. First, Thundra Staves Rangel showed up first. She was there waiting in the front row of class before class started. And she says hello. She is one of my certified astrologers, and you can go to her website, Thundra, thundra.thunderwizard.com, and you can get a Vedic astrological reading from her, or a bunch of other stuff she does. You can go check her out. And then Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello also. You can go check out his website for the same thing. He's got a bunch of his own services as well. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. If you want me to do the same thing for you, you can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com. And if you pass the very simple test, if you follow that course, I will give you a page on my website, and I will advertise you if you come onto the live stream and say hello to me. All right. Creative Virgo has an honest feeling. She says, the Merkaba around your celestial gong is a delight to view. Oh, so you're talking about this over here. Yeah. So, yeah, I came to realize that the angles that are used, which those of you, again, if you're practicing the Maushan, whether it's this or whether it's the 90-day challenge, what I want you to realize is that this isn't like Tai Chi, which is a bunch of spheres. Tai Chi is nothing but spheres. Everything is a sphere. The truth is that's not entirely true, but as far as everybody knows, that's what's going on. The Maushan is a combination of triangles and spheres, which is exactly what makes up the Merkaba, which is the basic essence of the universe. The universe, I could get into all that. We've talked about it before. So I want you to watch that. If you notice in the beginning, there's that, these kinds of things. You'll notice I'm creating triangles, and I'm also creating spheres. The combination of these two things is what allows the human being to create electromagnetic fields, which then actually I'm coming to realize is on a much smaller level creates gravitational waves, which is when you use that in a fight against a human being, they have no defense. When you use it against an evil spirit, the gravitational waves actually tears the demon apart because they are a dense creature. And as it turns out, that's exactly how, according to Bob Lazar, that's exactly how the aliens use their propulsion technology is actually creating gravitational wells, and the craft falls into the gravitational well as opposed to being pushed, which is what we do with our planes and our cars, etc., etc. All right. So thank you for that. Suk Bear Singh, if you have a question, if you look, you haven't seen it, but what I want you to do is to write the word question in all caps. Why? Because if you don't, I might not see it. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to ask questions based on what I've been talking about. So if you ask a question that either I'm not talking about, I'm probably going to give you a snarky response. So since you're probably new to the channel, I'm not going to do that because you're asking me what is the role of the 140,000. You mean to say 144,000. That is a Christian thing. I'm not a Christian. I used to be, and I'm not anymore. So I can't answer that question because number one, I don't believe in it, and number two, I'm not talking about it. Welcome to the channel. What do I think about the Kalki avatar? I believe that it's an avatar. I mean, again, the other thing, when you've been on my channel a while, you'll know to ask specific questions. Asking me these general questions about, what do you think about Bear aspirin? What do you think about this? These are too general. I want you to spend some time. I want you to think, be involved in the subject matter, and have an intelligent question that provokes me to ask and to answer on an in-depth level. Why do I do that? I am teaching you how to interact with the gods, how to interact with the ascended masters. The ascended masters do not respond well, in my experience, to questions like, what do you think of such and such? They don't respond to that. If you ask a question like, if you said, who is Kalki? How is the Kalki avatar going to change the world? Now you're asking a question that the gods can respond to. So don't ask these general questions, because it shows, on the one hand, you're not thinking deeply. You're just kind of bored and you're throwing out a question. What do you think of the car I'm driving? What do you think of my cologne? It's that kind of a question. It's not worth your time. What's worth your time is when you have a question that is driving you. You need to know the answer. For instance, if I ever decide I want to interact with aliens and they respond, I'm going to ask them questions like, why don't you communicate with words? I'm going to ask questions like how do I get that power? I'm going to ask specific questions that are driven by things that I really need to know for my own survival, for my own empowerment. Asking me that, so what do you think of, it means you don't give a crap. And I have more faith in you that you can go deeper than that. All right? We're not sitting at a bar just drinking, wasting time. In this class, what we do is we focus on practical ways that we can evolve. We're not just wasting our time. We're not just bored. It's okay if you are, but that's not what excites me. So, welcome to the channel. Now you know how to interact, and I give you the opportunity to do that. Okay, let's see. What else? That's not a question. Lushka, question. You know the rules. How do I want you to write the word question? Come on, you guys. What are the two most important things in the universe? Pay attention and put effort. Please do that. You say, question. With what you are touching on, would it be more terrifying for those who have no concept of a non-physical realm compared to those who have prepared themselves spiritually to embrace spirit? That depends on the individual. There are reports of people in high positions in government who've committed suicide once they become aware of the reality of all of this. Part of that has to do with, and even me, part of my discomfort when I start to realize that these alien beings are not just spirits floating around. That I'm okay with. But these are actual physical beings that take up physical space, that breathe physical air, besides whatever other powers and abilities they have. That changes everything for me. That changes what I realized coming to that awareness was that I was still operating from a monotheist model that human beings are the only intelligent created beings in the universe. And when we look at them the same way that your dog looks at you, that changes everything. Because then, my personal agenda, we talk about personal agendas and how important it is to know what your personal agenda is. My personal agenda is that I want to believe that alien abductions are a human false flag psyop, meaning that human beings are faking alien abductions so that human beings will be afraid of aliens. Because if we're not afraid of aliens, then the threat is that we could contact them and get all of our knowledge and all of the technology, and we wouldn't need the deep state anymore. So they don't want us having direct, like what happened in Zimbabwe. They don't want that. The last thing they want is little kids learning from aliens how to create their own, free energy machines. That's the last thing they want. One of the other things that the little kids said was that they felt that the aliens were inviting them to come with them. I don't know what the hell that means. That sounds scary to me, but it could mean that they were like, hey, we got to share some of this information with some. Why don't we share it with you guys? We can't do it with the military generals. They shoot us out of the sky. We can't do it with the adults. They're blind. They've got their religion. You guys are young. Your minds are open. You're innocent. Let us share with you how to create free energy and change the world and save the planet. Maybe that's what was going on with them. Yeah, come on board and we'll take you to our planet and we'll teach you. Maybe that's what was going on. But, the thing that I realized is when I think about that, the difference between us is literally like your dog trying to communicate with you. Dogs, by the way, everybody should go watch this channel. There's a channel on YouTube called Billy Speaks. Billi Speaks. It's not the only one out there, but it's the one that comes up on my feed. And it's this woman that has trained her cat to communicate. And there are these little buttons that have recorded words on it. And there's this whole vocabulary. I don't know, like something like 50 buttons. So a bunch of different words. And I shit you not, the cat will communicate very complicated emotional things like, what time is dinner? When is dad coming home? I'm mad because your music sucks. Things like that. And then there'll be like this communication. Of course, the cat is a cat, so it takes a while for the cat to process, and that, and so you have to be a little patient. But that blew my mind. I mean, I knew that my dogs and my cats always kind of knew what we were saying, but to know that they literally can understand the English that is coming out of your mouth. And if they had vocal cords and lips and tongues, they would communicate back. They don't have it. And that's what we're like with these aliens. They have this form of communication, and we're like a cat. We can't. How do you communicate? Your dog wants to tell you very specific things, but he can only go bark, bark, growl, growl. That's all he can do. This is the world that we're living in now. This is the evolutionary shift that we are potentially about to take. What happens when we go from being these beings that have to communicate with these symbol sounds that we put together that takes time? What happens when we go beyond that to just... It's a huge evolutionary shift. And it's, 1% between us and chimpanzees. 1% DNA difference. That's it. All right. So would it be more terrifying? It depends on the individual. For people who are born again Christians, it would be unacceptable. The thing is, that's one of the reasons why our societies and the powers that be have been doing everything to suppress this knowledge, because if people start to understand what I was just talking about, then the whole idea of God, becomes meaningless. And for some people, they're so attached to their particular religion, they're not fluid. Like, I'm not attached to any particular religion. I may be upset or uncomfortable or frightened by something, but I want to know the truth. I've always been that way. And I will go through whatever discomfort I have to align myself with the truth, even whether I like it or not. But some people can't tolerate that, and they'll kill themselves For a lot of born again Christians, if you tell them that Jesus doesn't exist, not only does Jesus not exist, not only did he not die for your sins, but there is no God the Father, and you are not made in God's image. In fact, you're just a monkey that learned how to talk, and there are beings out there that can do things that you can't even begin to understand. They're billions of years ahead of you. This idea that'll be more than some people can handle, and they'll blow their brains out. So it depends on the individual. I don't know. But this will definitely be challenging for the world, very challenging. And, that's one of the, when I think about it and I ask the question, why haven't they done more? Why haven't they showed up more? It's for that reason. And when I started thinking about what would happen if they decided to really become, to show up, because they'd have to show up in force, and land in, on the White House lawn, and land on the Kremlin, and, land in, whatever the equivalent of the White House in communist China is. They'd all have to land in all those places and get and say, okay, guys, listen, we're here and we want to have contact with you. They would have to do something like that. And that would be too frightening. People would flip out. People would, the rednecks would go and get their guns and they'd start shooting the place up. It would be such a drastic shift that our understanding of law and order and reality would come apart. And so I think that's why the aliens haven't done that, as well as I think that's also part of the motivation behind, governments not releasing this, for that very reason. Because it's already, people who have been working behind the scenes and seen the technology, they haven't even seen any aliens. Or if they have, maybe they've seen the recovered bodies that Area 51 has. But they've seen the technology and it's changed their worldview to such a, they go home and blow their brains out. Some people do. Thunderous Dave's Rangel, question. Do you think the Large Hadron Collider has an effect on our universe as nuclear weapons do? Well, that's what some scientists say, don't they? Before I would have said, come on. Now I'm willing to accept anything. I personally don't know. I'm not attached to it one way or another, but that is something that also popped into my mind. We start playing around with the universe at the subatomic level. Apparently, we start screwing around with, the entire universe. The thing is, you're having this experience. When you look up in the sky, you see just, what we can barely see of our tiny little portion of our galaxy. That's it. And we know that what we can see is absolutely, utterly, unfathomably huge. And even that is just a small circle of an infinite universe. And that infinite universe is only one of many. And that infinite universe might be a black hole, according to some physicists, which means that we might actually be living in this, what we experience as this huge infinite universe that might be infinitely small on top of some other universe's black hole event horizon. Now, this is the kind of thing that people smoke weed talk about. In other words, it's all connected. Even if we look at, our current theory of the universe, which is that there was a Big Bang, and the Big Bang, before the Big Bang, there was an infinitesimally small, and in just, in infinitely small space, there was infinite mass. Everything that you see was that, and then it exploded. So, this whole idea of space and time and size, it's all an illusion. So everything that happens here happens everywhere. That's just the way things are. And so if we are screwing around with the Hadron Collider and we're screwing around with the subatomic particles, we might be blowing holes in other people's planets. I don't know. So I'm open to it. So I'm open to that. I don't know one way or another. but I'm open to believe anything at this point. Excuse me. Darkitect, welcome to the channel. This is not up for discussion. I have a firm opinion on that, and I'm not interested in yours. If you have a question, I'm more than happy to answer it. You want to make proclamations on your channel, feel free. Go right ahead. Olivia Rackley, question. Do you give, what did you say? Sorry, guys. This is just the way that I am. This is how I want to do things. You're in my house. This is how I want to do things. I really just want questions and feelings. Olivia Rackley, question. Did you give me the money back? Okay, so Olivia, this is not appropriate for right now. This is a personal thing between me and you. This is not appropriate. We've already discussed this, so I'm not going to, I don't want to get into that with you here, if you don't mind. If you've looked at what I've done, you can go on to the maushan.thunderwizard.com and you're going to see that I have taken away that option, period. So it's not just about you. If you're asking, was it just about you? The answer is no. But can we please just move on from that? Can we leave that aside? Ask me a question about what I'm teaching, not about that kind of stuff. Is that okay? Anyway, so I was a little harsh with Darkitect. There was really nothing wrong with what you said. I agree with what you said there. Creative Virgo. Okay, yeah, that's not a question. Thunderous Daves Rangel, honest feeling. Aliens helping makes me feel scared and paranoid because of Jesus Savior programming. Yeah, me too. Even after all these years. Even after all these years, I was still operating, even though I had sort of shifted a lot of things around, I was still operating from this idea that, you know, we were the spearhead of consciousness in physical reality, and everything else, you know, are animals and spirits. And the thought, like I said, like compared to those beings, I'm like a cat. I mean, I can barely function. How do I communicate with a being like that? And that got me thinking about abductions, because I haven't made up my mind. I am of my agenda is to buy into what people have said, which is to say that alien abductions are a false flag operation, that they're humans who have taken some reverse engineered alien technology and they're doing it to fulfill their, as we've now seen in the past 2 years, they want to experiment on humans. They want to experiment on controlling them, frightening them, you know, so it's a way that they can do that under the radar, because then if somebody says, yeah, I was abducted by aliens, nobody takes them seriously. But that's a way for them to do that. And at the same time, it allows them the opportunity to come with the final false flag operation, which is they're going to fake an alien invasion. And they will do that for the same reason they did it over the last couple of years. They will inject a fear, a false emergency that the whole world will then want to come together, and then they can just control the whole world easily because everybody will be so afraid. President Reagan said that. He said if there was an alien invasion, we wouldn't, all worlds would come together and we would just be one government. Even Ronald Reagan said that. So I'm with you on that. But I start thinking about it, and I'm now, if I'm right, and I could be wrong, but if I'm understanding it right, and they can't communicate with us very easily because we're like a bunch of monkeys, and if they are saying, hey, listen, we've got a plan, and our plan is that we want to have people who can be a go-between between us and you, and then we'll work together and we can create a new world. And if we can't even look at them like a wild, without being like a wild animal and flipping out, then their only option is to, dart us and take us into the craft and, take out some some DNA. I don't know. That's the thing. I'm like you. I don't know that I'm comfortable with that idea. So if I do decide to reach out to them, that's what I want to do. I want to go, look, I need you to explain this to me because I don't know if I like this. But they may not give a crap what I think. I'm just another monkey running around on this planet. I don't know. But I agree with you. The programming is so deep, even after we reject the Christian programming, it still drives us. Still drives us. There's still at least once a year, I'll have a nightmare where I'm being attacked by demons, and I will wake myself up screaming, "In Jesus' name, Satan, I command," and I'll go, "Oh, I don't believe that anymore," after I wake up. It's such a deep programming. That's what's so destructive about that religion. Agent of the Universe, honest feeling, I am two-hearted. Okay, so no, Agent of the Universe, that's not true. You are not two-hearted. Because you took whatever medical procedure, that doesn't have anything to do with your heart. So please drop all that nonsense. I've never said that. People have asked me that, so pay attention, and I've said no. That doesn't cause any problems in terms of your spiritual, connection. It doesn't destroy your soul. None of that. Let's see. So anyway, I understand your feeling. I'm just going to read it now and I won't comment. You say, I'm two-hearted because I took the reptilian poison to fit in and be helpful. What you said about two-hearted people scared me and stimulated my fear of oblivion. So no, you did what you do, which is you tend to be too extreme. So this was one of those times where you were too extreme and you applied it to yourself in a dualistic way. This is your big lesson in this life is learning, as we said, to connect your head and your heart. So your heart, if you listen to your heart isn't telling you you're a two-hearted being. You're working really hard to stay connected and to find your true path, and that's all that matters. Okay? So don't be so hard on yourself. Olivia Rackley, honest feeling. I am excited at the thought of using energetic practices to contact extraterrestrials, but I'm also deeply afraid of us being deceived by them. Please contact your mentor's spirit. Well, the Hopi myth is good because they say very clearly throughout the whole thing that if you try and protect yourself from the purification, it's going to be meaningless. But if you are pure of heart, that is your protection and that you're good. That's the only thing that matters, is that if you are connected to your spirit, you're safe. Because even if what I'm saying is true according to them, what they call the Great Spirit, which is what I would call our soul is greater even than these more highly advanced, physical beings. So it's still the same. And again, I'm sharing with you my thoughts and my misgivings, but I don't have any fear about it. I'm not afraid about what's going to happen at all. I'm not afraid for myself, anyway. And you needn't be afraid either. Anyway, what else? And we're all spirits anyway. So no matter what happens on the physical level, even those people who supposedly, don't survive the purification, their spirits will. It's not like they're going to go to hell. It's not like that. Their spirits will still survive, even if in the physical they might be out of balance. Their spirit is different. This is a three-dimensional video game. Even for the aliens, they're part of this three-dimensional video game also. And they're also part of us. Everything is a holographic projection. So if there are alien beings that are far more advanced than we are, that is still a projection from inside of us. And vice versa. We are a projection from inside of them. If they have consciousness, they have the same consciousness we do. They've evolved in different bodies to perform different things. They interface with physical reality perhaps differently than we do, but their spirit is the same. And in fact, there's one movie, if I can remember the name, I'll give it to you, but it's actually mind blowing. If I can remember the name, I'll try and remember it. But it's a woman, I forget her name, but there was only one documentary made about her. And it was back in the 90s, I believe, before we had cell phones. And she started seeing, alien craft coming by her house. And so she was taking 16 millimeter film and shooting it. And when you play back the film, what you see is these lights bouncing around, and then you'll see these flashes of lightning. But when she gave the film to researchers, they would look at it frame by frame, and what would happen is in between the frames, what you experience as lightning, like one frame will just light up. There's actually these ships are writing her name in the sky and putting these weird, and it would be impossible for the amount of time in between from one frame to the next to have one frame. That's impossible. It's nobody can do that. There's no technique where you can do something like that with that short a time. So, and she has a very benign relationship with them. She's dead now. She had a very benign relationship with them, and they communicated with her, and she communicated with them. And she says that they told her that she used to be one of them, and that they remember her from previous incarnations. And that's, so the idea is that even though they're different physically, our souls are the same. And you may have been, from another planet in a different lifetime. And you may have chosen to come to this planet this lifetime, and maybe next time you'll choose to be, maybe agent of the universe, maybe you're an alien. Maybe that's why you think so differently. Maybe you're this is your first time to Earth. And so it's that integration, the emotional and the mental is different for you. So, that's another way to look at it. If I remember that woman's name, and if I remember the name of that documentary, I'll let you guys know. But you should watch that. Let's see what else. Agent of the Universe question. I feel an energy in front of me that whenever I do the yin-yang hands that organically speed up the movements. Have you had an experience like this? Yes. I'm not this way now because I'm lifting weights, but, and I'm 212 pounds last time I weighed myself. But when I was practicing this, because I was trying to master it, I was 145 pounds, and I was faster than I moved faster than you would have been able to see with your eyes. And I was nothing in comparison to my teachers. Your eyes would not have been able to register how fast they moved. And, the kind of, again, it reminds me of the way that alien craft move. So you see me here, I was lifting there too, so I'm much slower and bulkier. But what you're talking about, if you're doing the yin-yang hands, by the way, if you're new to the channel, you can learn the yin-yang hands by going here to Warrior 90-Day Challenge and clicking around. If you want to wait till the first of the month, you can. If you sign up and it's 1 week before the end of the month, you will have to pay for that month. But if you contact me after the first of the month, I will refund you that if you signed up in the last week of the month. But what he's talking about is that he's doing that practice, and that feeling you're talking about, Agent of the Universe, is exactly what happens. It turns you it changes everything in you. And you start, what you're seeing here, again, I'm doing it much more slowly so you can see it, but when you see me changing directions, I'm facing one of the 8 directions. When you really start to gain some energy, what ends up happening from the spiritual level is it looks like you appear and disappear. So evil spirits can't fight you. Now you're just changing direction, but that's, on the 3D level, that's what you see. But on the spiritual level, you're actually changing dimensions, which again is something that people say the reason why Bigfoot appears and disappears is he's changing dimensions. The reason why alien craft seem to appear and disappear is because they're shifting out of different dimensions. And so this practice gives you that ability. So what you're experiencing with your hands going faster and faster, and if they start to shake, it means that you've created an electromagnetic field that is shifting your vibration, and you're starting to very slowly shift into another dimension. There are pictures of me way back then when I was doing this where like my head is missing. Like you can see through where my head was. As I'm walking past, you can see my torso, but you can't see my feet and you can't see my head. And you see like the person behind, like looking through, normally you wouldn't be able to see through that. That's the kind of weird stuff this stuff does. So physically you're there, you watch me walk, you think you see me walking past, but that means on an energetic level, I'm phasing in and out. I never got to that point where, to my knowledge, I completely phased out of this existence, but I came pretty close a few times. At least it felt that way. That's what we're doing here. I'm not playing around with this. I'm not joking around when I talk about this. It's not just some cute little diagram. We're playing with shifting space-time. If you want to experience that, go here and go here. All right, see what else. Agent of the universe. Okay, I already answered that. Creative Virgo. Wait. Who is Karki? No, not Kalki. Karki, it's Kalki. Somebody was asking me about the 10th avatar of Vishnu. You can look it up. I won't take the time. Kalki. Vishnu has 10 avatars. Rama is one. Krishna is one. And the final one is Kalki, who is supposed to be the spiritual warrior who comes and brings purification to the world. So, the Hopis may be talking about him. So Kalki, Creative Virgo. Gil Sklepios, question, would it be a good idea to try and use mantra as we do the Maushan as well? I don't understand your question. Or is it better to focus on one? So Gil Sklepios, are you not signed up here? Because if you sign up for the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, you know that I take you through a practice which at the end, what do? We do mantra. And so in case you don't know, you're new to the channel, I am, to my knowledge, the only person that has a unified energy system. And in that energy system, we use chi, which is life force energy. We use kundalini, which is the energy that goes up the spine that works with the chakra system. And we use the lightning center of the heart, the heart mind. And I know for a fact that no other practice has incorporated the heart mind into those two. There's very few people that even know how to open up the heart mind. I think I'm the only person that's teaching that publicly, perhaps in the history of the human race. So you're asking me a question that you should know the answer to if you're doing that, because that's exactly what I do. So to answer your question, no. If you want the most powerful combination is to do that practice, to go on there and just click on the morning practice or the evening practice or whatever it is. And in that practice, you will do Qigong. You will stimulate the Kundalini. You will stimulate the lightning energy of the heart mind. And then at the end, you will do a mantra. And if you do this practice with mantra, the mantra is expanded like 10,000 times. the power that comes out of your mantra will be something that people spend a whole lifetime trying to get. So it's a shortcut. So the short answer is yes. And again, I'm scolding you. You should know better. If you're doing that, you should already know the answer to that question. But maybe you haven't signed up yet. If you haven't signed up, now you know you want to do that because I teach you exactly what to do. And again, you can wait till the first of the month if you haven't done so. Or you can do it now. And if it's the last 7 days of the month, I will give you a refund at the beginning of the month. Soul Blade, pay attention, please. What do I keep saying about question? You understand I won't see your question if there's a bunch of people I'm scrolling through, right? So this is for your benefit. Write it in all caps, please. Guys, please don't make me repeat myself. Pay attention and put effort. Maybe you're brand new to the channel. I don't think so. I think I've seen you before. You say, question, is Maushan a combination 8-direction movement? Yes. Koya Moon, okay, that's not a question. Creative Virgo, that's not a question. Black Earth Productions. Black Earth Productions, you can check him out. As you know, he's got a very successful channel. And he's got a website, blackearthproductions.com. He says, question, do you know anything about Pahana in context to the Hopi prophecy? I mentioned him early on, but I don't know any more about him than anybody else does. You know, they say Pahana is the great white or the elder white brother from the east, which is confusing in and of itself. But, you know, and the thing about Pahana is that there's no shortage of white people, you know, who are trying to, you know, anyway, without judging, there's no shortage of white people who think they're Pahana. And it must be really annoying for the Hopi. I don't think the Pahana is a white person. I don't think Pahana is, and I could be wrong. I'm just going off of what I've heard written about him. He sounds more like Kalki. He sounds like an avatar of some kind. He might even be an extraterrestrial. But he doesn't sound to me like an ethnically European person walking around. It would be a really nice thing. I mean, I've indulged in that fantasy, like, wow, could I be the Pahana? And I think every white person loves that idea. But not that you're asking me that question. You're asking me, what do I know? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I think it means more than what it sounds like, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just some white guy who shows up, and maybe it's an alien hybrid. Maybe it's an alien hybrid, an alien that hybridized some European person. So maybe it's a half alien, half human, and their human half is white. I don't know. Who the heck knows? Flux Pavilion question, how long is a good time to do the Nerthus hand seal facing north? As long as you want. As long as you want. Listen to your instinct. You know, your body will tell you when you're done. Do it, and then you'll, you know, in the beginning, you might have a hard time. You might not, but a lot of people have a hard time concentrating in the beginning when they're doing a meditation and they're turning the brain off. But as the energy starts flowing, or if you want to have a more powerful experience, then do some of these, the celestial qigong or the lightning qigong, do that, or the Maushan beforehand. Then you'll just go straight into a deep meditative state. You won't even have to try. You'll already be there. But if you're not doing that, then take however long it takes for you to get into a meditative state. And then once you like it, then just let it play itself out. And eventually your body will go, okay, I'm done now. And that might be an hour later. It might be 2 hours. It might be 15 minutes. I don't know. So whatever works for you. You mean the water seal. Okay, yeah. Creative Virgo, honest feeling or concern. Well, which one is it? I pray I have no food or drink when remembering sleep darts. I don't know what that is. What else? Zach Ariston, welcome to the channel. If you look above you, you see Flux Pavilion. He's written the word question in all caps. He did that so that I would see it. I've asked him to do that. I want you to do that as well. And another thing you should know, I'm assuming you're new to the channel, right? So the other thing that I ask people to do is to ask me in-depth questions about things I teach. I have never once, to my knowledge, ever talked about Kumari Kundam. I don't even know if I know what that is. So it's like going into this is my classroom. It's like going into a classroom and you're going to the electronics class and you're going to ask them about, you're going to ask them about history. You know, this isn't a history class. Ask questions about what's in the material. So I welcome you to spend time on my channel and to watch my videos. And again, it's distracting. So don't distract me from what we're talking about. Now, if you're one of my students and you are deeply involved in things I teach, then I'm going to want to hear that. But just coming in and asking me these, I'm repeating myself. Ask me about stuff you know. Ask me about stuff I know. Don't throw in stuff I've never heard of before. And if you follow and you pay attention and you watch some of the videos, you'll know what I teach and what I don't teach. I don't know anything about that. Again, Sukhbir Singh, did you ask me this question already? Somebody, I think it was you. Are you paying attention? Do you know about Kalki Avatar? Yes. I know of Kalki. And what kind of underarm deodorant do you use? And have you ever heard of Disney World? And come on, man. Put a little more effort into it. I believe in you. Okay, I don't see any other questions here, so I guess we're done with this. So, if you're new to the channel, these links are here for a reason. Know thyself. If you have a question, pay attention. Write the word question and ask your question. If you're new to the channel, all of these links are here for a reason. Go to thunderwizard.com and you can sign up let me tell you about the subscription levels. This is what pays the bills, but I never ask for anything without giving you far more than what I ask for. I don't take any donations. I always give you something of tremendous value in exchange for your support. So if you go to thunderwizard.com, you will see 3 levels of subscription. The first level of subscription is the Mastery of Shamanism course, which has, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours of videos there are on there. Everything from runes to ritual to mantra to shamanism to meditation to energy work to the 5 elements and the 8 directions and the blah, 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 so much stuff. That's the first level. The second level is called the Manifestation Mastery course. Now, when you sign up at the level of Manifestation Mastery course, you get access to the Shamanism Mastery and the Manifestation Mastery course. And there we talk about what you need to know how to get the universe to be like a vending machine. If you know what levers to pull, how to interact with space-time, with the matrix, with however you want to look at it, you can tell the universe what to manifest for you. And then the third level is the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, and that will give you access to everything. And this is I'm going to be sharing with you in there all of the Maushan practices that I know of, except for the spirit fighting practices, which you go here. But the combination of the spirit fighting and that's everything that I know. And anyway, if you guys want access to real power, this is what I'll be sharing. Courses.thunderwizard.com has all of my books, has all of my services. Go check those out. And anyway, so okay, I've done all the business. Let's see. So, know thyself. Write the word question in all caps, please. So next time I see it. Are the ant people in the Hopi prophecy are the Anunnaki? So you're asking me a bunch of different questions. One is, you need to understand something. I think I know what you're talking about. There's interesting correlations between the word Anunnaki And then the Hopi language, I believe I don't know if it's the Hopi language or if it's in Sanskrit. Anunnaki means ant people, something like that. There's some connection with the word ant people and Anunnaki, when the actual word Anunnaki does not mean that. It just means the gods. By the way, all of that nonsense about Anunnaki being aliens, that's not what the mythology says. It's been taken out of context, unfortunately misunderstood, and that all that Zachariah Sitchin stuff and all of that, what's his name? The other guy, the other reptilian guy, that stuff is not Anunnaki. The Anunnaki is just the word for the gods in ancient Sumerian. So in the ant people, Hopi Prof, are they the Anunnaki? I don't know what the ant people are. I find it interesting because the Greys look like ants. So I am having the same thought that you might be having, which is that perhaps the ant people, but in case you don't know, the Hopis talk about the ant people are the ones that taught them how to live in the area that they live now. The ant people taught them all kinds of ways to live and all kinds of stuff they didn't know before. And so some people are making the guess that perhaps these were aliens who came down and were teaching them farming techniques and things like that. I don't know. It could just be mythology. It could be, at this point, I'm willing to believe just about anything. But I do find it interesting that the ant people look like Greys. I don't know what those are. That might not be. But that's also, that's in one of the recent alien crashes that happened on an Indian reservation. A little kid, and this was, I think, back in the 70s, he was a Native American, he saw one, and his response was that it looked like a giant red ant. So I don't know if the color was red, but the body looked like an ant to him. So that would go a long way to supporting that theory that the ant people might have been actually might have been aliens. Also, the Hopi people do talk about the star people a lot, which is different from the gods. They're the star people, and then they're the gods. And so maybe, our indigenous people, maybe even our indigenous ancestors had an experience and an understanding with extraterrestrials that made its way into the mythology that we're not picking up on anymore. Or maybe those are things that have been lost. Who knows? All right, that's it. I'm done. I need to eat. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And of course, I will see you later. If you have questions, please leave questions in the video comment section on the channel, and I will be happy to, if I like your question, I'll make a video about it. Okay, that's it. Take care. See you guys soon. Take back your soul. This is another transmission from Mahadeva here at ThunderWizard.com headquarters, where you find the world's only unified spiritual energy system at ThunderWizard.com. Get ready, because here I come.